Thank you. Let's turn now to public safety. That also, particularly with all the anti-Semitism, the hatred that we've seen to other communities through the years, it's on the top of the mind of many voters. Rosemary, what are your thoughts on improving safety in the district in all of the towns?
Well, safety is not just something that's physical. It's also something very emotional, and it's very important for Yitz and I. Um, in the rise of all this, anti-Semitism, for people to feel like safe and heard. Um, our goal is to join our communities together. That's why Yitz and I are running together, um, and just come up with some ideas where we can make the public feel safe, heard, and respected.
So, Tamar.
Me, myself, yeah. So a couple of things, and I think this is, it's a really hard, it's a really tough issue to deal with. We're dealing with a tale as old as time of anti-Semitism and other type racism, all different types of hate. I think a couple of things. I think to touch upon what Dan said, strategic partnerships between minority communities. I think it's really important, and it's actually one of the things that inspired me to run was understanding that I run with Dan. District 37 is incredibly diverse. I don't think there's any one minority group that is more than like 20% or something like that. It's probably the most diverse district of all of New Jersey's 40 legislative districts. The Jewish and Korean communities are very strong and I think can work together. And I think this benefits, I think all minority communities need to work together. I think that is one that happens to be a good partnership. I think that sort of you need to call something out. You need to call something out in order. You need to name something. You need to name it to tame it, right? And I think that something like the IHRA bill, which has been in the news, lagging in the state legislature since well before October 7th, is important. I don't think it's going to solve specific problems. For example, it's not going to prevent the DC murders that happened last week or 10 days ago. But I think it's important to name it to tame it and to recognize what modern forms of certain types of age-old hate are. I think the other things we can do, and someone mentioned this last night, and we were talking about outside of a meeting in Tenafly, talking about Holocaust education. I think a lot of people post-October, Holocaust education is supposed to be, the goal of it is supposed to, that people generalize it towards all groups, right? Not just towards the Jewish people, but towards everybody. And I think that post-October 7th, a lot of people who had put lots of stock, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars into funding Holocaust education really saw things blow up. And I think we need to rethink the way that we are educating. I think we need to rethink public awareness campaigns and really focus on what does it look like today. And, we don't have that many Holocaust survivors alive now anyway, unfortunately, but there are those who are still speaking, but we need their children and grandchildren saying, what does it look like for me today, right? And so I think that's important, and we need to be generalizing it, because I think, people have walked away with that saying, well, I guess we're not gassing people, so it's not, it's not really true hate. So I think the other thing we also have to look at is to make sure that bias crimes are being prosecuted. I think bail reform is an issue there. Somebody for the first time draws a swastika outside of a synagogue, but then they end up walking because they're not, it's not a recidivist crime. We need to look at bail reform, which has, that is just one example of a bunch of issues. And we need to make sure that they're being, penalized, and that our judicial system is able to handle these cases.
Wonderful.